Hi, I'm Chris, and this is the Run Your Mind podcast, where we focus on the mindset and mental well-being side of running and fitness. Each episode brings you insights to help you build a healthy mindset with honest conversations and practical tools that you can use in your own fitness journey, giving you what you need to work on your mind, not just your mileage.
Years of hurt, years of grief, years of depression, and actually getting out of bed one day and going, I'm going to be a better person.
Today I'm joined by Pete Coopah, and we're talking about avoiding unhealthy comparison with others. Pete will share how he's become more mindful of reflecting on his own journey to avoid this, what his younger self would be surprised about if they saw him today, who inspires him in a healthy way, and one thing he always encourages others around him to do to avoid procrastination and worrying what if. So let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Run Your Mind podcast. Today I'm joined by Pete Coopah. Pete, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. For people watching this, and there won't be many who haven't seen your face or your name, would you mind giving them a bit of a brief overview of who you are, first of all?
Well, firstly, I'm sure there's lots of people who won't know who I am. But yeah, I'm Pete. I'm the co-founder of Coopah, the run coaching app. And I really believe that running is medicine, and I want to bring the medicine of running to as many people as possible.
Nice. So I always find it curious when, we'll see on social media online of people of where they are now and think this must have been their life forever. Like, they were so interested. Obviously, you built a business around the focus of running. But take me back to what got you into running. When did that journey start and what sparked it?
Yeah, so I've always been into sport, mainly football, cricket.
Yeah.
Had a lot of years where I travelled all over the country to play, watch cricket, be involved in cricket sessions, and I honestly thought growing up I was going to be a professional cricketer. I thought there was a really good chance, and then when I was about 14, 15, I started to wake up and realise that wasn't a possibility. And my mum had just got into running herself. I loved running. I did cross country at school. I was one of the weird kids who actually enjoyed looking forward to cross country. And I think it used to be Tuesdays for cross countries, Thursdays were football. And I used to love that. But I guess my mum got into running later in her life. After she stopped riding horses, she decided to get into running. And for me, it was when I went to watch her at the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
I remember going to her, Mum, everyone was shouting your name. How would the people know who you are? And she was like, oh, well, I've got my name on my top. And all I could think about was, that's like being a footballer walking out at Wembley.
Right, yeah.
Like thousands of people screaming your name. So I said, how do I run? And what marathon can we do together?
Yeah.
And then we went and ran Plymouth Half, was my first ever half marathon. I was 17. I had to wait to be 17, and it was the closest half marathon to my 17th birthday. And then I went on and ran Berlin Marathon a few years later as well. And I guess that was the start of my running journey.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose what's been like one of your highlights of your running journey since?
I guess a highlight of my own personal running journey definitely has to be getting the 6-star medal. But that's actually quite a luxury thing to do. Like, not everyone's able to get the 6-star medal. You've got to be able to travel to 6 different cities, pay for hotels. So I guess that was my kind of big 6-star medal was one of my main achievements, but also just running sub 20 for the first time was also a huge achievement. Like, breaking sub 20 is not easy.
No.
And I remember the day I broke it, my mum's sister was with me, and I just felt it was the right time to break 20. And yeah, it was an amazing feeling.
Nice. Well, I think even when we hear some amazing feats, and we've just had London Marathon, and you'll see times, there's a natural part of us that will always compare like someone's journey, someone's outcome, someone's goal or time or distance or achievement with ourselves. And when we were talking about topics for today, we settled on let's talking about comparison with others, because I think it's never more prevalent than it is now with social media and all of these kind of resources that can be beneficial and useful as inspiration in the right way. But I suppose first of all, look, what made you pick that topic? What was the reason that stood out to you?
I just think that we live in a world, you've just said it, where everyone compares yourself to other people. And I guess I've really struggled with that. Yeah. I've always looked at other people, whether that's been my brother, like trying to win the love of my mum and dad ahead of my brother, whether that's been playing in the cricket team, wanting to open the batting and I get dropped because I didn't get runs, whether I was also a goalkeeper. So that's quite an individual feat. If you're not the best, you're not playing. So I think for me, I've always grown up comparing myself to others. Maybe I've looked at the second choice keeper and gone, how do I always stay ahead of him?
Right.
Or I've looked at the number 1, 2 and 3 opening bats who play at, say, county level, and I've gone, how do I ensure I'm better than them?
Yeah.
So I've always compared myself to others. And what I love about running is you don't let anyone else down. Like, if I go for a run and I don't get my goal, I've only let myself down. And I think that's taught me to understand that you can only be the best person you can be.
Yeah.
But I think it's taken me, I'm 33 now, I feel old, but I'm 33, and I guess it's taken me 33 years to actually get to that and realise, be present.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of links actually to the one of the questions. Do you find comparing yourself more to your past self or others more now that you've got to that 33? Would you say it's more comparison with self or others?
Do you know what? If you asked me that a year ago, it would be 100% others.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even look at how far I've come.
Yeah.
Now I'm probably at 65% comparing myself to others, and then reminding myself, be present, look at how far you've come. You're whether it's with Coopah, the app, and I'm like, you've got more users than you had last week.
Yeah.
Or this week I got out for 3 runs, last week I got out for 2 runs. I'm doing better, and I think I'm getting more to a 50-50 split, and then I hope to make it more compared to myself, to look at how far I've come rather than comparing myself to others.
Yeah. What do you think's changed within that year? Is it been a gradual increase, or is there something particular that's caused you to go, let's focus on my own journey more and being present? It might not be where you want it to be yet, but you're doing it more.
I think there's been a few things. First is a better therapist.
Yep.
A therapist who probably understood me early doors and went, like, this guy's just constantly saying, this guy's never going to be happy because he's always wanting to get to the next level. So he gets to one thing and then he wants the next. And so I guess that's the first one. The second one is actually having my kid. So I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and I kind of watch her with our mates, and they don't compare each other. They don't look at what each other's wearing. They don't ask how much their mum and dad are earning. They don't ask who's the fastest kid. And I'm like, when did we get taught about being the best you can be or being better than somebody else? And I think there's a lot in being the best you can be. I want to be the best person I can be, but I'm never going to win the London Marathon.
Yeah.
So what's the best that realistically I can become? So I think actually looking at my daughter, and then the third is just not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, generally, like, oh, it's amazing that they've done that, but I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. So why am I caring so much about it? And I think that's what I've really worked quite hard on, is like, I have a list at home of things that I want to achieve in 10 years. I always do it per decade. And if it's not on there, then why do I care?
Yeah.
Why would I add that onto the list? Because I didn't care about that 3 years ago, and I still don't care about that now. So actually kind of not giving a fuck is probably the third thing that I'm trying to do more of.
Yeah, no, so that I love that point. I had another guest on talking about that and linked to values. And the more you remind yourself of what you want, when you do see other people doing things, it's inspiring, but you can then check and go, actually, what's the reason I'm starting to feel like comparison there? Actually, this isn't something I want, but the way social media or things can be pushed, you can think you want it. You can think, the natural reaction now is when you've done a half, when's your marathon? When you've done a marathon, when's your ultra? When's your Ironman? And it's actually going, there's nothing wrong with that, but just making sure you're doing it because you want to do it, not because everyone else is doing it, or you're looking for that even bigger dopamine release that you're going to get there, and then, as your point earlier on, go, right, what's next, and not actually ever enjoy the moment.
100%. I last year did my first ever 1 mile race.
Yeah.
And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it's also one of the most fun things. Like, for 5 minutes, I pushed my body to the max. There was no comparison of me and others. It was, in fact, when I told people I was doing a 1 mile race, nobody went, what time are you going for?
Yeah.
Whereas when you do a marathon, everyone's like, what time did you get? And I could tell them I got 2:40. Yeah, I never have. They'd go, a guy in my office did 2:30. And I don't get why people always want to compare. I think people compare you to others as well, especially around marathons, which can be such a time-focused thing.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's the same with others' opinions, isn't it? Sometimes you'll see other people's insecurities come out sometimes because maybe they're locked in that headspace of always having to compare.
Yes.
So they always want to find out, and sometimes people even do it to make themselves feel, they didn't realise they're making themselves feel worse by asking that and talking about it, and you see people's reactions in that way. And I love what you said about seeing the world through your your daughter's eyes is how people interact. Is even if it's not you're a kid, it's maybe a friend or something, and just taking it from a different perspective. Like, I've spoken about this before, but having friends outside of running or outside of this space where you can chat to, and they won't ask you your times. They won't ask. It's not like they're not interested, but it's nice just to have that perspective, isn't it? And avoid then going, oh God, every time I speak to someone, people are going to want to know my times, because some people then think, well, I've got to get faster, or I can't socialise around people when I'm injured, for example. Because there's this sort of guilty feeling sometimes, I think, in this running world where people can think, oh, I'm injured, or, you know, I can't be around people, I've got to separate myself.
100%. Yeah, I 100% agree that. That's why I just love watching kids, because like when I watch my daughter interact, someone comes up to her that she doesn't want to speak to, she just carries on walking. There's something quite nice in that. We see it as rude, but actually it is quite nice. Like, no, I don't want to play with that or talk to you. I'm just going to go off to another friend. So yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, nice. Next question for you. If you had, talking about your younger selves, if you had your younger self running with us here, or walking with us here, got shut down again, just a reminder for people watching. What do you think would have surprised them about what you've done, overcome, or become?
Oh, just repeat it again. I think I've got the answer.
If you had your younger self walking with us here, what do you think would have surprised them about what you've done, overcome, or become?
What would surprise me? I think it's definitely speaking out about my mental health troubles, or whatever you want to call that, illness, sickness, however you want to call it. I remember like once when I tried to come out and tell my friend I was struggling, and I remember their response to me, and I remember being like, oh yeah, I'm not the guy who should come out and talk about mental health. Like, I'm the guy who goes to watch football every week. I'm the guy who doesn't miss an England away game. Like, I'm a strong, working class, individual male, strong male. Like, I'll protect anyone, I'll protect my family. And I guess it's that how vulnerable I've become. And people actually probably know me now as, the guy who started a brand after coming around from attempting to take his own life. And I think there's probably a lot of other people who's been in a similar journeys, but they don't want to talk about that. And I think what surprises me is some of my mates on the football who now openly talk to me about their mental health struggles. So I guess that's why I gravitate to that answer, because if I go back to who I was 10, 15, like I said, I'm getting older now, so it is like 15, 20 years ago. I see those mates still, but when I'm in that scenario with them, I'm like, gosh, these aren't mates I'd really open up with. But then I just went and opened up one day and was really vulnerable. So I guess, that's probably my old younger self would have gone, gosh, I can't believe he's so vulnerable about his own mental health.
What advice then, I suppose, if people are maybe watching this and maybe they want to be like that, is there any advice, and this is just advice, of course, because everyone will be different, but how you can approach that conversation or start just talking about it with people?
I guess the first thing is things are a lot better out than in. When I attempted to take my life, no one knew. I'd have been one of those statistics where everyone went, he was like the happiest go lucky chap I've ever met. I didn't realise he was depressed, which you always hear when someone takes their own life. So I guess it's better out than in. And then secondly, don't look to your closest mates to open up to them, because that's actually the hardest thing, because they know you so well. And actually the person who I opened up to was someone I'd met for about 2 hours in a pub. And I was drunk, so maybe I was more confident, but I opened up to someone I'd never met before. I took his number and we started meeting up for coffees, and turns out he also struggled, and we now have this beautiful relationship, which is all because one night I just opened up to him and said, do you know what, mate, I'm really struggling. And I didn't even know this guy really. Like I said, I'd met him for a few hours in a pub. So I think don't always look to your closest friends if you want to be vulnerable, because for me, it's the anxiety that comes with it. I'll then worry that, okay, I've left my best mate. Is he going to go and call my other best mate and tell him? And then they're all going to ring me, or they're never going to talk to me again. So, for me, it's, I guess, really is look to see who that right person is. And maybe it is just calling a mental health support number. Because there's always someone on the end of a phone for you. I
mean, Samaritans is, I've obviously coached people, I've had people in in that headspace, and they've spoken nothing but good things about those services. They're there, and you know, a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to burden someone, but it's not. You're not burdening someone, and I think you're so spot on that you might not even have that circle because you might think, my friends don't talk about this, so maybe there's even more anxiety and stress. But as you say, it's then going, rather than going, well, I can't speak to my friends, so I can't speak to no one, it's then going, okay, well, if it's not them, who are the other sort of people on the tree? If it is sometimes a stranger, that can be beneficial. And it might not even be going into all of it straight away. It could be just broaching the topic, couldn't it? And
100%.
And talking about it and my advice often to when people are speaking to you is they're often not looking for you to fix it, because very rarely can you. They're often just listening, wanting you to listen and like hold space for them.
Which is sad because they don't have anyone else who they think wants to listen. And I also think another thing is that, like, and you've probably heard me say this before, there's literally a run club now for anybody.
Yeah.
So, like, if you do like running, which is probably why you're listening to this, because they're aware of you, like, what your run club is perfect. You're not forcing people, you're telling people to talk.
Yeah.
Like, you're giving them a cue to ask a question and create meaningful conversations. So actually, your run club could be the perfect place for someone who doesn't think they've got anyone to listen, because it might not be the exact question they want to be asked, but there will be something that makes them open up. And there's something about running that just makes you more vulnerable. Yeah. Like when you run in, maybe it's, you're not looking at people, but we've spoken about this loads, but you're definitely much more open to your vulnerability. Yeah. When you're running or moving even.
Yeah, and the point you mentioned earlier on that now you speak about more openly, the people around you do, is I think vulnerability, I always say, like, builds relatability, is that when you speak, people are like you say, people might still think subconsciously, oh, I would never have thought Pete would be like that, but they're like, oh, actually, I've now got someone I can talk to about it. I've now got someone who could understand me, or we can have this type of conversation. And in the same way you just mentioned there, Run Your Mind, is like when people know that, oh, I can come here and talk about this, or I know this person talks about this, it makes it easier for them to go, well, we can have this type of conversation, whereas if you're used to just one type. Yeah. So I think often what holds people in is thinking, I don't want to bother people, but actually it's always flipping it sometimes, going, by sharing this, I could also be helping people around me, because other people could also be struggling with this.
Yeah, 100%.
And the more I talk about it, the more I normalise it, and maybe they'll come to me, and not only will I feel less alone, but I know I'm helping a friend or a partner or a colleague as well.
And I think people always talk about social media, but don't also underestimate in a group. Like, if you're in a group of 30 people in a meeting and you're like, I'm having a really shit day, like, you could be helping one person within those group of 30. You don't need a social following. You don't need a big workforce, lots of mates. Like, it could just be a small group of 2 people, 3 people, and they might just need to hear that. Yeah. So I think everybody has mental health. We all live with mental health. It's like physical health. So everyone has shit days, and we should just be way more open about it.
Definitely. Yeah, it's normalising that conversation, isn't it? It's going, because when you say, people say, oh, I've got mental health, it's like everyone does.
Everyone does.
And it's like, and also it's not always binary. It's not always just good or bad. There's so much grey in between. Like, exactly. It's not like you're either super fit or unfit. Yeah. You know, there's so many gradients towards it. And in the same way we speak about physical health is the more we talk about it, the more we normalise it.
100%.
A flip reverse this, we kind of touched on this a little bit at the start, but how does comparison with others serve you positively in your life? So that majority you're still comparing yourself with others, what positives do you take?
When I look at myself versus someone that I think I'm in a better position.
Or in any sense, whether that's looking at you in a better position, or someone you look at who's maybe doing something you're not yet. What ways do you use it positively around you?
I guess, do you know, we're doing a lot of work at the moment at Coopah about who inspires you, why do they inspire you, and the name today came up was Jamie Vardy. Okay. And like, a lot of people think he's this kind of guy, you know, his song goes, you know, I don't know if I should sing it, but you know, anyone who knows his chant will know the kind of person he looks at. But then I actually go, do you know what, Jamie Vardy is an absolute inspiration to me, because he has been grafting away his whole life. He's been playing in like the Northern Premier League, which is what, like step 8? Yeah. And he's gone on, he's played for England, he's won the Premier League, I think he's won the FA Cup, and he's still a little bit laddie, which is I quite like, but at the same time, he's got to the very top. And I look at that as just pure graft, and so many of like these inspirational people, they've got there because they've not been, no one's ever been gifted anything, but they've maybe had a leg up, or there's a link in to help them get to that level. And actually for me, it's those real like working class guys, whether it's like Alan Sugar. Like, I don't know the deep into Alan Sugar, but I generally feel like he isn't lying when he was working on the market stalls and he made his billions. So people like that just give me that slim hope of maybe I can make it. Like, maybe I can still keep going and being a better person than I can. And it's going, people like me can get there. And they do. And I guess that's a positive comparison of others, is looking at people like that and the life they live and go, they've done amazing. And then also looking at where I was to where I am now and just going, do you know what, Pete, you've come a long way. I have a list on my phone of everything I've achieved since the day I went to take my own life.
Right.
And whenever I'm a little bit down, I try to get, I say little, because if I'm really down, then I can't open my phone. I just struggle. So when I'm a little bit down, I look and go, gosh, Pete, if you'd taken your life on that day, you wouldn't have achieved these 30, 40 things. And some of them are really easy things, like really simple things, like, managed to get back to work.
Yeah.
Like, that literally was one of the things, like, I managed to get back to work. Like, that's huge. And then other things are, like a humble brag, I guess. It's like, bought a house, started a business and managed to buy a house with a mortgage. So it's just showing myself that there's these extremes of what I've managed to do and keep going. Like, I'm still only 33. Where could I be? I'm looking forward to when I get to 40, what I've achieved on that list. And I always have a few things on those lists that are achievable. It could just be like, book a holiday. Yeah. Like, once a year, go on holiday. And to a lot of people, that isn't achievable. Like, they might never get to go on holiday. Like, there's been years where I've never been on holiday with my family, but for me, that's just something now where I'm in the position where actually I love holidays, I love traveling. So even if it is just 2 nights away, I can book it and I get that excitement of I've ticked it. I guess there's an answer for looking forward and backwards as well. Yeah, and there's 2 things I really love about that. I think, first of all, particularly the people you mentioned, what you referred to as was the controllable things, that as to why that comparison with others is inspirational. And I think that's also really important when you are comparing yourself to others, is looking at the controllables rather than the outcomes. Is going, because you might not be able to achieve the outcome, if you only focus on the outcome, you definitely won't. But thinking about what do they do? So when you're talking about Alan Sugar, market stalls, when you're talking about Jamie Vardy, like doing it in the lower leagues, all these things were the controllable things, not the medal that he won. Like, people look at and go, oh, he's a Premier League winner. But it's like, but look at all the things he did that got him there to that point where he's now in his late 30s and still playing around it. And also, the other thing you mentioned, which I think is so beneficial and why I think self-reflection is so powerful, is that the more you reflect on where you've got to and the things you've achieved, the more you almost inspire yourself to go, well, if I've got from here to here, then what's the reason I can't go from here to here? 100%. And what's next? In an excitable way, not in a not being present way, but in a, well, actually, like, I can do tough things. And it's funny because in business especially, I remember the minute we got our first customer, someone went, that's the hardest thing to ever do, you get your first customer. Then we got to 100, then we got to 1,000, then we became £1 million business. And everyone at every point, someone said, that's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it's like, well, that's really weird, because when we got our first customer, I was told that was the hardest thing to do. And it's actually just eliminating everyone else's thoughts and going, you can't just settle at where you are. You have to keep building. And actually, to get to 10 people coming to your run club, you have to get to 1. And if you don't get 1, you're never going to get to 10. So don't look at, I want to be at 10,000 people at my run club. Go, I want 1. And then when you get 1, how do you bring 10? How do you bring 100? And I guess that's maybe how Vardy looked at it, was, if I keep turning up and scoring 40 goals a week in the Northern Premier League, some scout is going to come and check the top goal scorers in the league and select me. And that's, I guess, how he did it. And you can say he got a lucky break, but he was scoring 30, 40 goals, 50 goals a season. Like, there's a reason why not everyone can do that. And he was probably behind the scenes, practicing free kicks down the local park, practicing his penalties, And I think that's the thing, the grafter puts a lot in behind the scenes that you don't see.
Yeah, you know, I always say, like, behind every piece of luck is a ton of controllables.
Yeah.
We see the luck at the end of it. And sometimes I think people mistake luck and gratitude. Like, you could think, oh, I feel lucky to be here. It's like, well, maybe you feel grateful to be here.
Yes.
But there's nothing wrong with feeling lucky, but never ignore what you have controlled to get there, to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, it's so true. And I quite often say, things like this shouldn't happen to me. Like last week you talked about London Marathon, and like I'm stood and I'm seeing the brand on every single runner's bag, and I'm like, shit, that's like incredible. And I remember I went with my mum-in-law to check in and get her bib, and the lady said, oh, are you running? Are you here for a reason? And then I was like, oh no, I'm just coming to check it out. And then my mum-in-law went, oh no, Pete's brand's one of the sponsors. He is Mr. Coopah himself. And I remember going, God, I should actually, and I turned to, my mum-in-law is like one of the most humble people I've ever met. And I went, does that mean you're proud of me? And she's like, I'm really proud of you. And we've got like my family, my in-laws, like we don't have this thing where we tell people, well done, you've done well. And that to me kind of was everything, just being told, I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
And I guess, again though, that doesn't just happen overnight. Like that is years of hurt, years of grief, years of depression, and actually getting out of bed one day and going, I'm gonna be a better person. And every day waking up and going, what can I do today? And that all comes back to my sole purpose of, I believe runners are beautiful people, and the more people we can get running, the better the world is. And every morning I just wake up wanting to help bring the medicine of running to people. And if I can do that, then I honestly believe we can grow every day.
Yeah. Going back to that proud thing, how often do you tell yourself you're proud of yourself?
Never.
Never?
Never. Yeah, never. Do you know what? I was speaking to someone about this the other day. So the story of the Abbott 6-star medal was that my mum, when she was in her coma, I went up to her and said, I had to say bye to her basically. They said, we're going to turn off life support, go and say your final things. And I said, I'm going to go and get your bucket list, which was the 6-star medal. And I've dreamed of getting that 6-star medal for years. Mum's died for 9 years now. And I got it last year, so 8 years on, I got it for her. And I got straight back on a plane after finishing Boston Marathon. I went out, had a Guinness, which I always do for my mum. It was her go-to recovery drink. Things have come a long way since then.
I don't know about that.
No protein or anything in there. And then I remember we went out, and then I was on the 7 a.m. flight back from Boston.
Yeah.
And at London Marathon, setting up at the Expo, the Coopah stand, and I probably wore that medal for 6 hours. It went away in a drawer, and I remember this year going and seeing people with the 6-star medal. I was like, I haven't even celebrated that.
Yeah.
Like, why did I not say to my wife, and why did my wife not say to me, should we go for a really nice meal to celebrate? And it's like, I've got to, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm getting more in the present, because I've got to start celebrating the highs, because the lows in building a business are fucking low. So if you're not going to celebrate the highs and just let a bit of steam off, then what are you kind of doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, like, that self-compassion, self-kindness doesn't equal complacency. Like, giving yourself credit doesn't mean you're taking your foot off the gas or you're jinxing yourself, and it's not trying to ignore the things that you don't still want to work on or things that aren't going to plan, but it is providing that balance. Because it's in the same way if you mentioned about buying a house. Like, if you were building a house and never looked at it, you wouldn't know how it had got on. Or if you're an artist and you never looked at your art, or, you know, talking about the Coopah app, if you use the Coopah app and never looked at any of your runs, how would you know if you're progressing? How would you feel? And it's not obviously all just about times. Obviously there's a feeling to it, but the point of having things like this is to have that self-reflection and to go, oh, look how well I'm doing, and look at what I'm progressing with. Yeah. And we're so conscious of that externally with things, but I think it's so important to do that. And the reason I asked that question is that's something I used to struggle with, was telling myself I'm proud of myself. So I don't want to be too arrogant, don't want to be too cocky, too this, too that. But I kind of reminded myself, well, this isn't me telling anyone else, this is me telling myself. And the more I tell myself this, the less surprised I'll be maybe when others say it, but the less reliant I'll be externally on it, and almost thinking, what would I say to a friend right now if they'd achieved this? Yeah. And it's not having to, it doesn't, I think some people worry that they'll think, oh, I'll just sit on that. And it's like, no, it could be a moment. It could be a moment you know, even if it's not even just after the event, of just going, do you know what, I'm really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Like, what would I say to a friend if they said, oh, guess what, I've just completed this? And I really tried to do that on my challenge on the 30th, not even just on the 30th half, but throughout, because I didn't want to just get to the end and go, I'm proud of myself. It'd almost be like, I wouldn't say that to a friend. I wouldn't be like, I'm only proud of you once you've done 30. It's like doing it throughout. I wrote myself a letter, and then I wrote myself a letter at like checkpoints throughout. And I was really conscious of being like, if this was someone else, how would I speak to them?
Yes.
And I think that's something that's really helped me with that internal comparison, and also like self-compassion as well.
Maybe that's, I'm going to take that for sure, because that should be something in me, is actually, instead of getting down that my loved ones don't tell me well done, it's actually, this is what I would want to hear. So tell yourself, because actually you're the one who's done that. And I think it's funny as well with our team. Our team are a bunch of incredible talents, and they're all so humble. Like, you've met a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's like people in there whose family have built some of the biggest businesses in the world. There's people in there who have literally like come from absolutely nothing, and they're these incredible employees, and they're so humble. And maybe sometimes I need to also be like, guys, we're all going out and celebrating today because we've just had an incredible week after the London Marathon. Like, let's go and celebrate. Whereas maybe sometimes I'm just too thinking of the next thing, and that could just help the team morale a bit as well. So I think not only writing it for me, but also then writing what would the team want to hear from me too could help as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever read the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, the Black Book.
No, I haven't.
But statistically, the most successful sports team of all time, and they'll do things a little bit differently. So when they have a big win, they'll actually come in the next day and analyse it.
Right.
And most teams would do that if they lost.
Yes.
It's not saying they don't analyse their losses, but they think it's easier to build consistency with something we're doing than changing something we're not.
There's not,
So it's almost going, don't just celebrate success, but analyse it, because there's so many clues in there. I think a lot of people can then think, oh, we got lucky, or, oh, I'm so glad, I'm so relieved that went well. But then the clues are in the reflection, and not just celebrating it, but thinking about what worked here, because it's not just about giving ourselves credit, it's about giving ourselves clues for next time of,
true.
What do we do? Because if something didn't go well and we're going to spend half a day in a meeting room analysing it, why don't we spend not all that time, but a quarter of it, like looking at, well, what went well? What did go to plan?
That's really interesting, because one of our advisors, who's built one of the biggest apps in the world, he actually said to us the other day, he said, what are you really great at? Like, you've got to this level. You don't just get to this level by luck and word of mouth. Like, there's somewhere where you're great at. And we said what we're great at. And he's like, well, how do you 10x that? And he's like, stop looking at where things haven't gone right and going, how do we spend money to fix that? He goes, you're great at this. Put 10x of your time into this, and you'll probably get 100x the results. And I guess that goes back to the All Blacks book as well. It's like, we're winning these games because I'm not into rugby, but we were making this pass at this point or something, and we're unplayable when we play like this. And actually, do that way. I think is I really like the look of. I really like the sound of that. I'm going to take that on.
Yeah, I think it's the same with your own running journey. It's not trying to be everything, is it? There'll be certain people who are good at certain things, whether it's a distance, whether it's a running style, whether it's how someone is with their recovery. It's like it's not saying by just focusing on strengths you're ignoring what you still want to work on those areas of development, but it's still capitalising on what you're good at.
Definitely.
Like, that's why you've hired probably different types of people in your business. You know what you're good at. But if you all had the same personality, the same approach, there probably wouldn't have been as much growth or
100%
innovation.
And you'd only have one real big brain of thinking, not 10 different minds on a topic. So,
exactly.
That's really true.
So I suppose we've indirectly touched on this point, but is there any other advice you would give people who are maybe finding unhealthy comparisons showing up, whether it's in their running journey, constantly comparing themselves to others online, or they're doing something great and then all of a sudden they see other people running or getting a time and they're like, oh God, like that's never going to be me, or what I'm doing is nothing?
I think it really is just understand what do you want to be. Like, what do you want to be, and ignore what your mates are, ignore what people you follow on social media are. You don't understand what else they've got going on in life. Like, for me, my daughter's been ill for the last 4 days, and my wife's been ill the 4 days before that. So I've literally been like fully looking after my wife, my daughter, and actually getting out for a run for me was second priority. Whereas some of my other mates who don't miss any of the 1%, the reality is running is their first priority. And I have to remember that and go, I don't have that as my first priority now. And the minute I made that decision was actually, they are my first priority, running's my second priority, or running's probably my third priority. Coopah, building the business is probably my second. And just coming to terms with, you're not going to be able to get as fast as you used to, as quick as you used to. But even if you can still get out for 3 runs a week, that's a success. And I think that is the thing, just, if you compare yourself to someone else, you have to compare your entire routine to them, your entire life to them. You can't just look at someone and think, why aren't I that great? Because actually you're as great as you can, as long as you're being as great as you can be for what's going on in your life, then that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, and you made such a good point there as well, is that it's not just about others, it's past comparison of yourself, of going, I used to be able to do this. It's like, yeah, but maybe you're a parent now, or maybe your work is, or it's like maybe work at the moment has got more stressful, so you can't commit as much time to it, or maybe you've developed a healthy relationship, so you're not going for 7 runs a week, but actually you're prioritizing rest more, which is actually benefiting you. So yeah, it's that context, isn't it, of being able to be conscious of the whole picture rather than looking at someone's reel or something and going, oh my God, like they're running every day, or why are they always so like fast in their video? It's like this person has sprinted for like 30 seconds.
And you might not want to run every day.
Yeah.
Like if you run every day, you might fall out of love with running.
Yeah.
And actually the key is be in love with running because you're a better person, and whatever that turns out to be happy with that, and just be happy with where you are, because if there was a magic pill that you could take to be the best person in the world, probably 90% of people would take it, but the reality is there isn't, and graft to be the best version of yourself, I'd say.
Closing question then for you.
Should we walk that way? So I'm getting back. That's the exit there. Oh no, it's that way, isn't it? It is there, isn't it? Yeah.
Closing question for you. What's we'll do that bit again.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all right. We can keep it in.
For some reason I thought it was there, but it is there.
Yeah. Closing question for you. What's one mantra that helps you with your own journey, whether it's running or life?
What's one mantra
or quote
that helps me? Do you know what? There's a poem that my mum used to have on the wall, and this is how old school it is, because it's male specific, but it was like sooner or later in life. I'm trying to remember it exactly. I might need to get on the phone and say it, but it's something like sooner or later in life, it's something like the ones who win aren't necessarily the fastest or the strongest, but they're the ones who think they can. And I guess that's the thing for me, is some people might achieve what you want to achieve in a day. Some people could wake up and achieve it, but if you want to get something and you constantly think you can, then I think you're already getting a head start. It's the minute you say we can't do that, we're not going to be able to do that, why can't we do that? You're in the negative straight away. So I guess my mantra is, just believe in yourself, believe you can, and keep waking up knowing your goal, and know that real North Star metric, and just graft every day to get to where you can. And one day, if you think you can, you'll get there. Yeah, great. Well, Pete, thank you so much for coming on, for joining me. For anyone that wants to follow Pete's journey or find out more about Coopah, you'll be able to find out in the comments below. Let us know if you've got any questions from the episode. Let us know what your thoughts are, or if you want to cover any particular topics in the future. But Pete, thank you so much. Cheers, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Cheers, mate. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Stay mindful. Cheers.